You guys got your water bottles? Bathing suits and towels? Okay.
Rain or shine, day and night, this is how Chris and Melissa Bruntlett and their kids get around the city. Commuting, shopping, virtually all of their travel is done by bike.
I think it may have started out as an act of rebellion, as proving a point, but we've surprised a lot of people, not the least of all ourselves, at how enjoyable, how much we've gained from the experience.
Who's hungry?
When we first sold our car, it was kind of nerve-wracking. You never know exactly how you're gonna be able to get around, and I think I was more nervous than Chris was, but quite quickly we figured out it was easier to get around town by bike because we don't have to worry about traffic, any sort of delays, whether or not the car is in working order. Getting on your bike is really just unlocking the bike, sitting down and going.
It seems so easy in the summer.
Let's go.
9 a.m. and Chris is taking Etienne and Coralie to summer camp, mostly on side streets. Melissa rides for 20 minutes to get to her job on one of Vancouver's busiest urban bikeways. The city's proud of how many people commute without cars. It says half of the trips to and from work are by walking, transit, and cycling, and bikes are the fastest growing segment, driven in part by a push to build bike lanes in the downtown core, though it hasn't come without a fight. Taking this lane away from vehicles on the Burrard Street Bridge, a major commuting route, made some people very angry.
But here's a statistic that might surprise you. You'll remember I said that cycling is the fastest growing segment among commuters in Vancouver, but it still only represents 5%. And so bike advocates say it's time people around here started thinking bigger. Europe big.
In Amsterdam, cars dominated city streets until the 1970s, until huge protests led to changes. Over the next 2 decades, it was a city transformed, with raised cycle lanes beside main roads and shared lanes with low speed limits for cars in the inner city. In Copenhagen, only 12% of commuters use cars. Elevated cycle lanes connect neighborhoods. 6 new bridges over the harbor are exclusively for bikes. Numbers like that help explain why some cyclists in Vancouver don't sound very excited about all those new bike lanes here.
I think it's making slow progress in the right direction, but I really wish it were making fast progress and trying to make a huge dent in how we have opportunities to cycle.
That's right, Vancouver. Kate Heschke says you're making slow progress. She's a UBC professor who doesn't just study the impact of cycling on communities. She's an unabashed advocate who's lived in the city for more than 40 years and who says far from doing enough, Vancouver is in danger of falling behind.
I think it's interesting that throughout North America now, some of the strangest places are adopting this idea and saying that they're going to leapfrog other places. So Calgary has just developed a downtown bike network. Calgary, amazing. Pittsburgh, their mayor is having a challenge to leapfrog other cities. They went to Copenhagen to study Copenhagen. They want to get there. Austin, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee. People are starting to realize that this is a great way to direct transportation dollars, a lot cheaper than building new roads, a lot cheaper way to relieve some of the congestion, and good for public health.
Vancouver's mayor, Gregor Robertson, who does commute by bike even when the cameras aren't rolling, says he supports doubling, even tripling Vancouver's bike routes.
We're starting to focus out into the neighborhoods surrounding the downtown and improve that. And I think we'll be aggressive with that over the next several years, and that'll only increase the number of people riding.
I'm surprised. You have to deal with the political accountability here, and I thought you would not really embrace the idea of building even more infrastructure quickly.
Actually, we've had enormous support. I mean, I've been re-elected several times since doing the Burrard Bridge bike lane, and we've seen ridership across the Burrard Bridge skyrocket. So, I think there was a lot of publicity about blowback, but at the polls and in the feedback that we get, cycling is popular and people think we do need to keep shifting and building bike lanes.
The cost, say cycling advocates, is offset by fewer cars on the road and a healthier population. Portland, Oregon, just down the coast from Vancouver, estimated the bike lane dividend. Investing $138 million in separate bike lanes and the resulting increase in trips saves $388 million in health costs. The theory is more people, more active, leads to less illness. And interestingly, more cyclists on the road creates a sort of safety in numbers, reducing collisions. Still, there is a significant problem in Vancouver: timing. Building bike lanes disrupts car traffic. It can take away vehicle parking. And even those in the business community who support more bike lanes caution it needs to happen slowly.
It's not going to happen, I think, in 10 years, but maybe in 20 years' time. But it's not to say we shouldn't strive for it, but I would argue that I think the better investment is going to be in our public transportation system. We have to find a way to do that. And I think, how do we then address the issues of street-level businesses that are saying that we can't give up, that on-street parking for a small percentage of people that are going to cycle in the separated bike lanes where we don't see activity year-round.
10, maybe 20 years' time, cycling advocate Kate Teschke has a much different view.
I think that Vancouver could achieve 20% of trips by bike. And it could be done fairly quickly. A great example, Seville in Spain, what they did is they decided they were going to build out a cycling network mainly on main streets, so it was very visible, in 2 years. They built 70 kilometers of separated bike routes. In another 2 years, they added another 70 kilometers. And they did that partly to avoid the opposition. They wanted to just say, here it is, come and use it. And that's exactly what happened. The amount of cycling increased by 20-fold.
Hang on a sec, are you advocating the Seville solution for Vancouver?
Absolutely.
That's almost certainly not going to happen, at least not that quickly. Still, the city has announced record numbers of rides on most of Vancouver's bike routes. That, of course, includes the Bruntlets, who will keep cycling and pushing for change.
We feel now part of a movement. The neat thing about social media is now we've connected with people in other cities around the world that are trying to fight the same battles and make the same change in their cities. And it's been really rewarding to see ideas that took root in Vancouver now spread to Buenos Aires or Auckland, New Zealand. And so we feel a part of a movement that's trying to build more humane, more livable cities, and it's been an exciting ride.
By the way, Chris and Melissa are celebrating a milestone anniversary this summer. 5 years, car-free. Ian Hannamansing, CBC News, Vancouver.